Hot Mic is brought to you by Red Wing Shoes of Fargo. Built to last. 3003 Main Avenue, Fargo.
Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something. Izzo.
Coach Dom Izzo, WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota.
Can you give me a layup or something?
Hot Mic. Hot Mic. Presented by Northwestern Mutual.
That program is second to none.
On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Here we go on a Friday morning, a very patriotic Friday morning here on the networks of WDAY. Thanks for being with us. My name is Isaac Dienison. If you have not been paying attention to this show, we've been setting this up for quite some time that this is my debut in the big chair here, and I am very happy to be with you this Friday morning to talk about some sports. If you're not familiar, I am typically a news reporter here at WDAY, but again, I do dabble in our sports coverage sometimes, and I am thankful to, again, be with you here this morning, filling in for Dom Izzo on his show. And before we get too long, I wanted to begin this show by at least kind of rewarding some of the viewers that are starting the show with us and are planning on carrying with us through the end of the show. I wanted to at least give you guys a little bit of a view of who I am and where and what my background is in covering the land of sports. I have done a lot in my career, and I wanted to at least give that context to you guys before we got too far. So really, I don't want to get too far into my story here, but, and this show, of course, is not going to fully be about this. We're going to be talking about all the happenings in the world of sports. We got a great guest lineup, by the way, that we'll get into in just a moment. But Dom said in his show Monday that if you caught the end of Monday's show, this is going to be kind of an interesting full circle moment, in particular for me, because I actually used to work on this show. And here it is. You know, we had, this is in 2020, 2021. You can tell by some of the visuals here. I used to punch these buttons that our current crew is punching up to put me on the screen. I used to be the person in charge of putting Dom on the screen. That led to plenty of other opportunities. I got to work with the live sports department for a year in 2021, but I left in 2021 to pursue an opportunity to report on news in Wausau, Wisconsin. And if some of you are watching from Wausau, hello. I worked at News 9 WAOW in Wausau, Wisconsin for about 3 years. Covered pretty much everything from severe weather to the Green Bay Packers, and had a great time there. People there were top-notch, but my contract ended there after a few years. Decided to pursue another opportunity, and here we are again here at WDAY. I've been here since September of 2024, again covering news and sports. In particular, I've gotten an opportunity to cover, as you see there, the Moorhead Spuds boys hockey team's first championship, and I've even got to fill in sideline reporting for Sam Getzinger during WDAY broadcasts of Bison basketball games. And even there, as you see there, filling in when we had the WBIT in Fargo. So most recently got an opportunity to do the softball Class A state tournament in Minot. That was the last time I was paid to talk about sports, and so here we are. That's at least who I am as an individual. I've been employed by a local news station pretty much for almost 7 consecutive years. Gotten an opportunity to do a lot of great things in my career, and this really does feel like an awesome opportunity for me to, just kind of sit here essentially and talk about some of the things that I'm passionate about in my fandom here. Basically, it's been an incredible ride so far, and I hope that you guys stick with me here as we go throughout the show today. Now, before we get into some of the other things we want to talk about, we have done, as if you've been following through the last few weeks, we've tried to do our best to cover the World Cup. And we are, still, a couple days away from the U.S. playing in their knockout game on Monday, but we still had some action last night that we'll get into right here. We had 3 more games in the knockout stage last night, beginning with Spain and Austria here. And now, I'm not the best soccer rube here, but we had some pretty interesting action yesterday. That's a goal there for Spain to make it 1-0, and then they were able to add on here on this little cross header into the goal. Spain wins it 3-0. That put them up 2-0. Spain didn't even allow a shot on target in their game. Portugal-Croatia, really interesting action yesterday. Here's Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the best to ever do it, tied the game at 1. This would go down to the wire here, and here's a header into the box in extra time here at the very end of the game to give Portugal the lead. Croatia, though, would get another opportunity here. It goes into the box, it's headed in, but wait, VAR says 15 is offside. Wave off the goal. Portugal survives. They'll play Spain in the round of 16. They win that one 2-1. Very emotional win there for Portugal. And then the nightcap on FS1 in Switzerland and Algeria. Long run here, cross into the box, goal for Switzerland. They go on to win that one by the score of 2-0, as we will have them play the winner of Colombia and Ghana in their round of 16 game. As we take a look at the full bracket here again, I'm not going to give the full analysis of what we've been seeing so far, but again, just seeing some of the World Cup action. You know, you talk about how the 4th of July lends itself to American nationalism. It's been really fun seeing all these countries' nationalism and pride for their country show here, as we've been seeing all these games here across North America. USA and Belgium will be playing on Monday here, as we alluded to on the show yesterday, and I wanted to kind of tee something up from yesterday's discussion. Riley Swenson was the host of yesterday's show, and I, respect him, of course, as an individual, but I have a different opinion on something that he was talking about yesterday. That relates to the very controversial play that happened late in the U.S.'s win. Fuller and Balogun here called for a red card in the U.S.'s win against Bosnia-Herzegovina here. VAR was used to determine that he committed an act that was worthy of a red card, and not only was he not able to play the rest of that game, the U.S. finished that game with only 10 men. Balogun will not be able to play in Monday's knockout game against Belgium. So people have been up in arms about that play in particular. You saw it for our television audience here. People have been up in arms mostly because of the spirit of the way that review was conducted. Now, and I will intro my thoughts by referring to at least some expert thought we ran in a story on WDAY News at 11 yesterday from ABC. Now, I will read this verbatim here. Experts say in issuing the red card, the referees failed to follow protocol, using slow motion to review that play, which can make accidental contact look more serious. According to protocol, slow motion is only supposed to be used to pinpoint contact, not judge its severity. But despite the controversy, FIFA does not allow teams to appeal red cards. So that's the interpretation that people are going off of here with these rules. But, I come back to this. I've been going back and forth on this issue since this happened. And it really feels like this type of situation where you have a flagrant act that is shown on replay. You look at the replay, even if it's slowed down, it's very clearly a flagrant act. But something like this is not foreign necessarily to sports fans. This feels very similar. This outcome feels very similar to something that, as American sports fans, I think a good many of us should be somewhat familiar with. To me, using VAR to determine whether or not a foul has been committed, well, isn't that something that the NBA uses? Minnesota Timberwolves fans should be very much familiar with the new proximate foul rule, aka the Jaden McDaniels rule. You can have officials go back and look at the monitor to see if a foul was committed, whether or not the officials, especially if the officials did not call it as a foul on the playing surface. The Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals a couple years ago had an out-of-bounds call that went against them in a game against the Dallas Mavericks that may have been called, that probably should have been in some cases, called a foul because the ball was knocked out of bounds by a foul being committed. And the Timberwolves in 2025 against the Los Angeles Lakers also had a game kind of swing their way because of an approximate foul being called on LeBron James that helped the Timberwolves win that series. So this is not a common instance, of course, I would probably say, in soccer. Again, I don't follow soccer to as much of an extent as maybe others, but the concept of having a play, overturned by replay or having a different outcome associated from replay, this is not a foreign concept. Now, I will say, though, the penalty for a red card in this case does feel a little excessive, especially with how the severity of these games tend to go. You have, of course, it's knockout, one game, one loss, and you're out. This does kind of feel, though, like the targeting rule in college football or high school football. In college football, if you commit a flagrant act of targeting, you are ejected from that game, and then the first half or the remaining half of that game or the first half of the next game, or if you're in high school, you commit a targeting foul, they end up getting ejected fully for that game and the next game. So there's at least precedent there, but we have at least some kind of opportunity to at least say we as sports fans, at least in America, have become sensitive. We have not necessarily sensitive, but we have seen instances of this opportunity come up. Our producer Eric Bonnell has something to add here.
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem with this, and I'm going to pull it up here, is that if you look at this one, the Balogun penalty in a picture, if you look at this one, and then you look at this one, what's the difference? Like, where's the difference? That's the problem with that. Like, as an American, that's the problem I think a lot of people have, is that this should have been a penalty as well as a red card, but Balogun's was called. So that's why there's so many people up in arms, because you can't, slow it down. It's a soccer play. He was going for the ball. It happens. That's not a red card.
I think you have a point. However, I think at least in the spirit of wanting to get it right, I think to your point, I think they probably should have, again, at least from an American mind that doesn't follow FIFA or its rules, there needs to be consistency. So I'm with you there, but I'm kind of still on the side of it's not that, I don't know how to put it other than, we've seen other instances of, even in even you can kind of make somewhat of a similar argument in, basketball, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I do agree there, and there needs to be consistency in the way that it's utilized. So that's at least kind of where I stand on that. I don't know. You can feel free to email the show here and chime in with what you think. This has been a very interesting topic. I do still think the penalty for this red card is still very much severe, but it does feel like it's, I don't know. This is a tough thing to look at least from. We have other instances of these live time events where players are, competing at very high speeds. They commit these acts that are not called initially, but when you slow things down, they are flagrant. That's kind of the point that I was trying to make here.
We also need to evaluate the red card suspension, for the game. If you're gonna if you get one in the first 45, you're already sitting out the whole half of that game,
right?
And then you should just have to sit out maybe the next half, and you're good.
And that's the spirit of the college football targeting rule. So and that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make, at least on that aspect. This does feel like a little severe. If you commit a flagrant act that's worthy of a red in the first half, you should be able to just miss that game and the rest of that game, and then kind of figure out, how to dole it out from there. If it's in the second half, fine. Just, you can be subbed in then. It would cost the United States a substitution, which you can only make a limited amount in a game. So that would at least create some kind of tactical type of situation there if you were to dole out red cards in that way. Again, I take my opinion with a grain of salt as someone, again, that just kind of watches soccer on a very casual basis here. But at this point going forward here, we have a lot more things other than soccer to talk about on this show as we get to our guest lineup presented by Northwestern Mutual. We'll be talking a lot of baseball today here, especially with our guests. Pleased to be joined by the voice of the Minnesota Twins, Cory Provus. He'll be on at his usual Friday time slot of 9:35. We'll get an opportunity to talk about the Twins' most recent series victories against Colorado and Houston and preview the final stretch before the All-Star break. Then we'll talk with Joe Schreiner, the president of the Wahpeton Baseball Association. He'll be on to talk about the big baseball game in Legion play between Wahpeton and Breckenridge that happens every year on the 4th of July. And then we'll be sitting down with Chris Coste, FM RedHawks manager. We'll be talking about his recent induction into the American Association of Professional Baseball Hall of Fame. That's all coming up on Hot Mic. Let's hit a break here. We'll talk with Cory Provus after this upcoming segment. We'll be talking about NDSU football going to the Mountain West. We'll have a final new opinion, at least for final initial thoughts on this move. Stick with us. Friday morning, Hot Mic here on WDAY Extra. We appreciate you being with us here as tomorrow's the 4th of July, very patriotic holiday. It's the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. We appreciate you being with us, as I imagine plenty of you may not have work today, but here we are still bringing you some of the latest here in the world of sports here today. Before we touch on a thing I teased last break here, wanted to touch on here something that we talked about on our sports last night. Trayson Eaglestaff, former UND guard, will get an opportunity to play in the summer league here with the New York Knicks, the defending champion New York Knicks. Feels weird to say that. UND was very blessed, I'm sure, to have Trayson Eaglestaff as a part of their program for 4 years, and I got an opportunity to talk to him before this Alabama game when Grant Nelson was coming back as a member of the Crimson Tide there, and I could tell, first of all, Trayson Eaglestaff, very class act, an incredible person to talk to, very much down to earth, and very much understood the importance of Grant Nelson coming back to Grand Forks and putting on a show for North Dakota basketball. Eaglestaff was incredible in that game. And, now getting an opportunity to see another North Dakotan pursue an opportunity to play in the pros is really something special. You don't see it very often. Eaglestaff will be wearing number 36, by the way, on the Knicks Summer League roster. He'll have a teammate from West Virginia on the roster with him as they at least try to showcase their skills. You won't see Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, anybody like that on these rosters here, but it's still a good opportunity here for some of these younger guys, whether or not they're rookies like Eaglestaff, who went undrafted this year, or just some people that have been in the league, on the G League maybe for 1 or 2 years. It's a cool opportunity to at least get themselves an opportunity to showcase their skills, and we'll be looking looking pretty extensively here at what Trace and Eagle staff can do as, other more recent North Dakotans that have gotten an opportunity to play in the Summit League. Talked about Grant Nelson. He had a cup of coffee with the Brooklyn Nets last year, only playing 4 games. And we were also looking at Jackson Money around this time last year, former NDSU forward. Played with the Santa Cruz Warriors last year after I believe he was with the San Antonio Spurs last year during Summer League. So again, Trace and Eagle staff, congratulations on getting this opportunity. We'll see how he fares here in the Summer League. Transitioning now, I know that we've had 4 hosts this week, and we've had a lot of Bison talk, especially with WDAY and Forum Communications renewing the TV contract to be able to broadcast football, basketball, and other Olympic sports. But it's been quite the last few months just even being able to talk about Bison football joining the Mountain West. And I will say, as someone who went to NDSU, and had all these, dreams of what would it be like if NDSU were to play at that level of football, it's incredibly gratifying, I will say. And it's also very much exciting. It's been, my freshman year at NDSU was right after the 5-peat. And that was at probably the height of popularity for the program, arguably, maybe even earlier in the dynasty. But at least at that point, it was incredible to see, the Fargo Dome for the first time. It was impossible as a student to get a ticket. You had to be up at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday morning to be able to get a student ticket at that time. But now as time's gone on, the program has continued to be successful. And again, it's been awesome to see, the different eras now of the dynasty. You have the first 5-peat, 2016. They didn't win. They won 3 more in a row. And then there's that period of time where you have the weird COVID season that affected that streak. Then they come back and win the following fall. You've seen the growth of this program and the adaptability of this program through all the head coaches that they've had. It's been incredible to see from at least afar, having not been here in Fargo for a few years before, a couple years ago, and then coming back here in 2024, seeing the last probably FCS championship against Montana State in 2024. And now you have this move where just kind of, we've been hearing things back in February, and now all of a sudden we're 57 days away from kicking off, and we'll see the Mountain West logo on the Gate City Bank of the Fargo Dome field. It's quite a surreal thing to think about as we, kind of continue to count down here. Of course, we'll have so much more Bison coverage on this show in the coming weeks, especially as we get closer to Mountain West Media Day. But it has been something special to see, how the fan base has reacted. 701 Day the other day, with all those donations coming in to make this move happen. I mean, even seeing the university put up so much money to make this happen. It's still, as an alum, just kind of, I just remember playing NCAA 14 and, loading up Team Builder. Like, what would it be like if, say, like the 2013 Bison were like in FBS, and then you grind your way through like maybe a lower conference. I think I did the Mountain West at the beginning, and then like, okay, let's see how they do after a few years of good recruiting. They go to the Big 12. I don't think that's the trajectory, but those were the fantasies back, 10 years ago, or even sooner ago than that. And now, we're going to see some of those, fantasies become reality. And when that first kick goes on August 29th against Jacksonville State, I really hope that starts a little, rejuvenization, if you will, of the buzz surrounding this program that had been somewhat absent, at least for a bit of time. And at least it had become pretty evident even before the pandemic that, interest in games have been waning. I just hope that as an alum, one, that this team can continue to compete at a high level. There had been years where, when they went 16-0 in 2019 with Trey Lance, which, by the way, was my senior year. I got a front row seat to that at the Fargo-Dome. That was incredible. But they would be ranked pretty highly in the Sagarin computer rankings, which of course don't reflect the actual polls, but you could see, theoretically, if you put them on a neutral field against a ton of these Power 5 at the time programs, they could probably hold their own, but we just would never know until the games actually get played. Now the games are going to get played, and we're going to see the Bison go to Air Force. We're going to see them go to UNLV this year, San Jose State, Hawaii, some big-time opportunities for fans to travel in particular, but also just to see this team compete in particular. I think will be just at least that'll be the most interesting thing that I'll be looking for here, at least in season 1 of NDSU going to the FBS. We'll take a break here in just a moment. We'll have Cory Provus on as the TV voice of the Minnesota Twins. We'll be talking about the last couple series and the Twins at the halfway point, evaluating this team. Cory Provus, voice of the Twins, joins us on Hot Mic coming up.
Deep to left center field. Back it goes and gone. The 0-2 pitch. Hey, struck him out swinging at 101. Swinging a drive, left field and deep. Back it goes and gone. And the Twins walk it off again.
As we have regularly on this program, we've got the voice of the Minnesota Twins on Twins TV, Cory Provus, joining us. Longtime listener, first-time caller. We appreciate you being with us here this morning. How you doing, Cory?
I'm fine, Isaac. It's good to be with you.
I appreciate, again, you being with us here today. We're talking Minnesota Twins baseball. We are not coming off a game last night, but an off day, a travel day now to the Bronx. Twins will be set to take on the New York Yankees this weekend. Twins are coming off their first winning month of the season, 14-13 record, capped off by a couple series wins. How's the team feeling at this point, do you think, coming into this weekend here?
I think they feel confident knowing that as we chat here this morning, they're the best American League team in terms of generating runs. They have been the best offense in the American League in terms of run scoring, and this is not a fluke. This will be game number 89 of the season here tonight. To me, and I think I've asked a few coaches about this too along the way, they have completely exceeded expectations in terms of, I think, slug and offense. I mean, I think the season that Byron Buxton has had, nobody's shocked with that. We're talking one of the top players in the game, but Brooks Lee has had a good year. Cody Clemens has been great. Trevor Larnach's power is coming around here a little bit. What the Twins got last month offensively from Victor Caratini and Josh Bell. When we talk about free agency, the Twins, they did not do a whole lot, and their two big pickups were pretty quiet in April and May, and then calendar flipped to June, and Bell and Caratini were fantastic. And I've been going to Dyken Park, and then it was Minute Maid Park. It was Enron Field. I've been going there, since 2007. I have never seen a ball land where Bell's home run landed the other night. And yes, they've reconfigured that. They've reconfigured that ballpark. Talus Hill is no longer there. But, man, clearing the batter's eye in center field, boy, not too many have done that.
I think if Talus Hill had still been there, I think that home run the other day by Josh Bell had an opportunity to still clear that. Speaking of Josh Bell, what has his presence been like? Again, as you mentioned, a free agent pickup from a year ago, couple home runs against the Astros. What's production like from guys like him mean to this group of guys that are still, a lot of them still trying to get their feet wet here in the majors?
Well, I think it's what's good to see, and I think with Bell, what's important is it's one thing if he's rarely alone. Like, he is somebody that he has teammates around him a lot, and for a good reason, because of all he's been through. He's been a top prospect, high draft pick, some success, some failure. He's bounced around different teams. He's been traded. So I think he's a guy that a lot of people flock to, especially this time of year when you don't know what tomorrow might bring. That's all good and well if you can talk about it. You got to do it. And he's doing it right now, too. He's not just leading by mouth. He's leading by play. And that to me, is important. And I think while he doesn't play too much first base anymore, he is somebody that Royce Lewis can lean on and ask and talk to about how to play the position and where to be and how. So without Justin Morneau around every single day, there is that player that he can go to that's not a coach, that can speak to him and give him advice about performance and about, style and where to be, positioning, if you will. So he just checks a lot of boxes. And I think the Twins knew that going in, but I think they were looking, too, for some power. And his second half was really good last year. After he went back to his old swing, he tried something new at the beginning of 2025. It was a massive failure. And then he went back to his old swing. And if you look at his baseball card, this is what he does. Once you get to June, the weather warms up, the bat warms up, and he starts to produce. And that's what we've seen from Josh Bell.
Coming off that June where, again, as we said, 14-13 record, first time that's happened for this team. You have 3 consecutive months where you're 2 under 500, 1-3 in March, 13-15 the last couple months. Does something like that, does the team pay attention like, hey, we have accomplished something last month that we didn't do the first few months of the year? One, do they pay attention to something like that? And if they do, what does that do for morale in the clubhouse?
I think they do pay attention. And what normally happens when you have a winning month is that you're doing not just one thing well, but many things well. But if you look at some of the numbers, the offense is doing great. At the same time, the pitching hasn't been very good. So the Twins have played a lot of long games here, Isaac, because they're scoring a ton of runs, but you know what? They're giving up a ton of runs. So that they've had to just overperform. I think they've had to, move past any and all projections because the pitching is not doing great, especially the bullpen numbers. I mean, the bullpen numbers are ugly. They're at the highest ERA in the game. The starting pitching numbers also were climbing a little bit better here and there. But normally when you have a stretch and you've won whatever it is now, is it 8-12 or 9-13, you're checking a lot of boxes. You're hitting, you're defending well, you're getting sound pitching, the bullpen. Well, that's not all happening. So to me, it's about the offense. And yeah, you're going to have Todd striking out 11, and outside of Joe's last start, Joe's been really good. The guy going tonight, Mike Paredes, has been a welcome surprise, but Andrew Morris has been great. Yoendris Gomez has been great. But that's really about it. There's not a whole lot you can lean on with the pitching side of things. This is about the offense that has absolutely been carrying this team now for a while.
Yeah, we had a couple moments, at least a couple weeks ago, where it almost looked like the Bomba Squad version of the Twins was back in vogue with the amount of runs that they were scoring. Speaking of some of that offensive production that this team's been getting throughout the year, Byron Buxton's been, talked about on this show in particular with you a lot. We're hoping still that he will hear his name called as an all-star starter this weekend. What say you about the way that things have gone? He was number 2 in outfield voting through phase 2. What say you about his chances of being named a starter in Philadelphia?
Oh, I think it's going to happen. With Aaron Judge hurt and Mike Trout hurt, I think, and Judge, he's not going to be healthy enough to play. Trout's a maybe. I think I think Byron's going to start, which he should. He should have started last year, and it's simple as Tiger fans voted more than Twins fans. And that's why Javi Baez was a starter and Byron Buxton was not. It had nothing to do with performance. Byron had better numbers. It was just who came out and who voted. And more Tiger fans voted than Twins fans. Those are the facts. If you go back to last year, not the case this year. And Byron is deserving. And I think Twins territory. And I think the game. The game knows. And I think fans know. And he's somebody that people want to see. he is somebody that you buy a ticket for. You want to watch him play. And he has yet to play on this road trip, but it sounded like he was trending in the right direction. You know, history says that he'll DH first and then come back, and that, you know, kind of puts the Twins in a tough spot because Josh Bell is a much better DH than he is a first baseman. And I think he'll tell you that too. So if that is the case, but, you know, maybe we're wrong, and, you know, the off day yesterday was all that he needed, and that he'll be good to go and play in center tonight. But if he's not playing tonight, then I think a roster move is coming. I just think you can't play this short, this long. You're going into a stretch now. We have some games coming up. You have an off day on Monday. I get it, before the Cleveland series starts on Tuesday, but you don't want to be short. You just don't. And so I would expect. It sounded like Byron was trending in a good way when Shelty spoke about it on Wednesday with the off day yesterday. That I have a good vibe that he'll be back at some point during this Yankee series.
Voice of the Twins, Cory Provus, joining us here on Hot Mic this morning. You know, when you talk about Byron Buxton, he's, again, as you said, a likely vote for the American League team. If at this point the Twins were to get another representative, you know, at least for those that, you know, have been, you know, following along with this team, what would make the most sense for if John Schneider, the American League manager this year, if there was to be a second Twin on this year, who should fans be thinking might be that second option?
I think Joe Ryan. I think the same two guys that went last year will have a good chance to be there again this year. You know, Joe's last start wasn't his best. He doesn't pitch well in Houston. I think he's a fly ball pitcher. It's a hitter-friendly ballpark. It's just not a good venue for him. And that's why he didn't pitch in the playoff series there in 2023. And that's why they kind of moved Bailey over to game one, and Pablo went game two, was for that reason. And Joe went game four at home. So that was a part of it, too. And I think that should not take away what Joe has done. I mean, Joe's had a great, great year. So I think he'll be there, too. I think the Twins are going to have two All-Stars, and I think those two stand out to me. I mean, Cody Clemens, from a utility standpoint, he's been fantastic. He's been so good at the plate. He's been really sound defensively wherever he's been. First, second, right, center. I've liked him in center this year, too. I don't think he'll get in, but just I think even bringing his name up in the conversation is deserving and worthy of the first half that he's had.
We'll continue this discussion here after a quick break here. Cory Provus joining us here this morning on Hot Mic. We'll preview the Twins' upcoming series in the Bronx. More with Cory Provus coming up on Hot Mic. Friday morning Hot Mic here the day before the 4th of July. Isaac Dienison filling in for Dom Izzo here. We continue our conversation with the voice of the Minnesota Twins, Cory Provus, settled here at his hotel here in New York City. The Twins will be taking on the New York Yankees this weekend here. Mike Paredes on the bump tonight against Garrett Cole, and Zebby Matthews and Carlos Rodon tomorrow. With Joe Ryan then going on Sunday, we have, you know, this opportunity here for the Twins to play not only on the 4th of July in New York, but they're playing in New York at a time where the Yankees are not going so hot right now. What should fans be at least looking out for at least the beginning, or at least throughout this series here with New York?
I mean, the Yankees are battling some injuries. Twins will not see Aaron Judge this series. They will not see Giancarlo Stanton this series. They will not see Max Fried this series. But the Yankees are getting some pieces back. They should be getting Trent Grisham back in center tonight. And Ryan McMahon, a really good third baseman, either tonight or tomorrow. There's also some food poisoning going around to the Yankee clubhouse that kept some guys out earlier in the week. But the Yankees have lost 7 in a row. They got swept in a 4-game series at Boston, came home and got swept at home by the Tigers Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But I was listening to some local radio even this morning, and they view the Twins as their elixir because of just the dominance that the Yankees have had over the Twins for a long, long time. And to me, if the Twins can keep the pressure on, if Paredes can keep this New York offense and this lineup in the ballpark, the Yankees are not playing good defense right now. They have let in a ton of unearned runs the last almost now 20 games. I think striking early is big again tonight. That's what the Twins did so well in the month of June, putting up first inning runs and forcing the opposing team maybe not to play the game that they prepared for, but also just, man, here we are, we're in catch-up mode, and off we go. And yet Garrett Cole's going tonight. This will be his 8th start since coming back from Tommy John surgery. His velocity's there, command isn't, and that's not uncommon. Guys coming back from Tommy John surgery, he's allowed 7 home runs in his first 37 innings. So that number's high. The ball's going to fly tonight because of the heat and the warm weather that we have tonight and again tomorrow. Might cool off a little bit more on Sunday. I think the ball is going to fly, especially out to right center, as we all know it can do and happen here so often at Yankee Stadium. So, yeah, I mean, the Yankees, they're going to be hungry. They're not complete, but what team is at this point? But I'm telling you that their fan base is like, this is the team we need. We need the Twins. We always beat them. That's kind of their mindset going into the series starting tonight.
Yeah, you don't even have to get me started. I've been watching this team like pretty much ever since that reign of dominance, that they had in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and through 2019. Yeah, I know all about that. So, and we have some resident Yankee fans here at WDAY as well. That
and a Met fan.
Yeah, that one too.
And Dom is a Met fan.
Yep, but at least the Yankee fans in the room are like, this is at least kind of the stuff that you were alluding to here. This is a team that the Yankees may need here to run into. This weekend, notable because, again, 4th of July at Yankee Stadium, that's treated as such a huge event every year. And you're also going to get an opportunity to, though the game on Sunday will be on Peacock, you'll get an opportunity to call that game here on a national stage. We were just talking over the break here. What's it like, though, to get to be one at Yankee Stadium around this weekend, but also get that national audience this weekend?
Yeah, it'll be neat. On Sunday, it's on Peacock and also NBC Sports Network. A few of the games, it's called the Star Spangled Spectacular on Sunday, where the bulk of the games are going to be on one of the NBC platforms, Peacock, but then a few of the games also on NBC Sports Network. So that includes our game. On Sunday, I've been lucky enough to call games nationally for Fox and for Roku, but now for with this NBC family, I'm very excited. And to be at Yankee Stadium and do it is really going to be cool. So I'm excited for that on Sunday. It'll be a Joe Ryan start. He had a really good outing at Yankee Stadium last year, and hopefully he bounces back from a rare clunker that he had the other night in Houston.
Get an opportunity to do the game with Adam Ottavino and Anthony Rucker on that NBC staff there. They'll have 6:05 first pitch tonight, 12:35 tomorrow, and 12:35 on Sunday. After this Yankee series, you got a stretch of home games here between the Cleveland Guardians and the LA Angels before the All-Star break. Talk about, at least for a little bit, about what this stretch of 6 home games you think will mean here for this team, regardless of what happens in this Yankees series.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it really sets the tone for I think, to me, thinking about the trade deadline, you go into the All-Star break, where are you at? And the Twins a year ago, I believe they were a game under 500, maybe 2 games under 500 at the break. And, they lost that last game. They nearly swept the Pirates. It was a series. They nearly swept the Pirates that weekend. They lost that final game that Sunday. But then they stumbled out of the break. And I will go back to the fact that that last game they lost to the Dodgers, I think, was the beginning of the end. And it was a game they had, the Mookie Betts check swing that wasn't called a strike, and then the intentional walk to Ohtani, and Griffin Jacks got mad, and then he walked to Stewie Ruiz, which he didn't want to do, and then Freddie hit the walk-off with a base hit to left field, and losing that game, going 2-4 on that road trip instead of 3-3, and then played poorly against Washington, Boston, trade deadline comes, and 40% of the roster is gone. So I think, Cleveland is a team in front of you. Jose Ramirez is hurt. Won't see him. He's got a hamate bone injury. We'll see if the Twins get maybe Bailey Ober back on this homestand as well. Sounds like Ryan Jeffers. I don't think he'll be back. I don't think we'll see him, but he's going to be ramping up baseball activity even more than maybe, out of the All-Star break is kind of when I'm starting to think about when Ryan Jeffers might be back with the boys here, as long as he keeps on progressing in the way that he has. But Cleveland, team in front of you, haven't seen them much so far this season, meaning we'll see them plenty the second half of the season. And the Angels are a bad team. I mean, the Angels are just a bad team. And if you want to hang in there or be a contending team right now, keep the foot on the pedal here and just, beat bad teams. And the Angels are a bad team. So that's to me, I think it's an important stretch. But starting on Tuesday night, off day Monday, Guardians and Angels to wrap up the first half.
And that Cleveland series, by the way, at least for those that will be watching those games, you alluded to during the break, those will be analyst-only games that the Twins will be putting on here. So you won't hear fans will not hear from you, presumably, in that series. At least from a production perspective, what's it like to, still have, the team put something on of that caliber here, at least for the viewers here?
Well, I think fans will be excited that I'm not there. I think that they'll be pretty fired up that I'm on assignment for that series. It's going to be really. I didn't see a lot of it last year. I kind of saw little clips here and there, and it sounded like the boys were having fun. And Denard Span is going to be part of it this year as well. So it's going to be, Span and Plouffe, Perkins and Morneau. They're bringing Pablo back as well. He's going to join them, I think, for a whole game or a part of a game or whatever it's going to be. But he's going to be a part of it. And I know there's going to be one day where they're going to have, I think, Perk and Morney are going to be in the booth. And Trevor Plouffe's going to be near the left field foul pole. And Denard Span's going to be in the right field foul pole. So I think they're going to have just a lot of fun with it. I would imagine there's going to be some good gags back and forth, things that they've planned to kind of, take shots at each other. I think they're going to have a really good time, and I think Twins fans will enjoy it. But they're also meaningful games, too. I mean, it's, you want to have fun and do a good job, but then also remember that these are divisional games against a rival, against a team in front of you. And you won 2 out of 3 against them the first time you saw them, and now you get them at home for the first time. So these are not insignificant games. These are big games, but I think the boys are ready, and they're going to have some fun.
The broadcast nerd in me is ready to see what the production staff is cooking up then based on that description. Well, appreciate you for joining us here this morning, Cory. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk Twins with you again. As a longtime fan, I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to have this conversation with you.
Isaac, I enjoyed it, man. Great job, and happy 4th to you and everybody out there, and be safe this weekend.
Thank you, Cory Provus. Thank you so much. Voice of the Minnesota Twins on Twins TV. When we come back, we'll be talking even more baseball. Joe Schreiner, the president of the Wahpeton Baseball Association, will be previewing a big Legion baseball game in the region. Breckenridge versus Wahpeton. Bragging rights on the line. On Hot Mic next.
This is Hot Mic with Dom Izzo, presented by Northwestern Mutual.
Friday morning Hot Mic edition here, July 3rd, 2026. Thanks for being with us. My name is Isaac Dienison. Hour number 2 getting underway here on this Hot Mic. We had a baseball-themed guest list here, and without much further introduction, we'll take it now over to our second guest of the day, Joe Schreiner, president of the Wahpeton Baseball Association. Big-time game coming up this weekend between Wahpeton and Breckenridge in North Dakota, Minnesota Legion play. How you doing this morning as we're a little more than a day away here?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Isaac, first of all, for having me and being a part of this. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about this great event that we usually have here at John Randall Field here in Wahpeton. It's fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. And there are 2 games that, end up getting played here with this opportunity here, 3 p.m. and 8 o'clock for the 2 teams that you guys have. First of all, for those that are not familiar with, the opportunity that it is to have these 2 teams play against each other, give us a little bit of a scope of what this opportunity to play Legion baseball on the 4th of July means for these communities here.
It's a pretty special event, obviously, and I'm going to go back a little bit in history here a little bit with you, Isaac, if I may. Going back to the early 2000s, our actual coach right now for Post 20 is Chris Kappas. And Chris, at that time in 2001, was the head coach at Breckenridge. And he proposed it to the then coach in Wahpeton, which happened to be Wayne Grippentrog, and he proposed it to play. And at that time, Wahpeton was playing the alumni team. They'd get together a bunch of alumni members, and they'd play a baseball game against the regular Legion team. Well, that usually was a big deal. Well, then in 2003, Wade Gilbertson took over as head coach of the Legion squad, and then Chris, again in Breckenridge, proposed this idea to play this game at John Randall Field. And since 2003, it's been the annual border battle. So it's a special day. The boys just look forward to it. I actually was driving the team bus on the way home from Park River last night, and we came by the field about 10:30, 11 o'clock last night to drop the boys off. And I said, boys, 48 hours from now, this is going to look a lot different. So there's going to be people all over, and they look forward to it. They really do.
Because, as you said, this game has taken many forms over the years. And, what's been most notable to me in researching this is our TV audience is seeing the trophy that gets presented to the winning team. This is something that it's not just a baseball game between two towns. It really unites these two towns. What say you about the magic that this, opportunity to play baseball on the 4th of July does for these communities?
Well, it brings everybody together and makes a great time. And of course, nowadays with social media, kids know each other, across the river versus back in the early days when, back when I played even, it was, you didn't really know them and it was a bigger rivalry. But nowadays, everybody knows everybody, and they're probably even maybe playing basketball on an AAU team somewhere or something, but everybody knows everybody, and it's still a competition, and it's still you want to win, just like every other sport. Unfortunately for football in the Twin Towns here, we can't have a football game here because of the schedule limitations. But for everything else here, basketball, volleyball, and all the other sports, and now it's baseball here. We do a high school game in baseball too, but Legion here, 4th of July at John Randall Field, beautiful baseball diamond. And I think you've been here, Isaac, haven't you?
No, I've seen it. It's great. It's a fantastic venue. I've been to Wahpeton many times just for news coverage. But, just to build off of the history of John Randall Field here, people that have played there for, decades will, attest to how, that field looks when it's full, and how it, how it just acts when, there's something like this going on, like how does that play into, how does John Randall Field in particular play into the whole, just build up of this whole thing too, with all the history behind the field in particular?
The field itself, and if you're not familiar with John Randall Field, folks, it's a beautiful 8-foot green wall all the way across the outside. And excuse me, there's no advertising on the walls at all. There's just the foot markers, and the foul lines are the only things painted on the fence. And then the big green monster in center field, of course, for the batter's eye is quite the thing too. And, we call it the green monster. It's not nearly what Boston has, but it's pretty cool sight. And the seating, and there's just earthen bleachers. There's places for people to sit in the shade. It's just one big good time here for folks when they come to the 4th of July game.
And
it really does unite the communities, as you say.
That's awesome. And our TV audience has, been seeing some images that, our partners at the Wahpeton Daily News have taken over the years, the images of, that 8 o'clock start time for that game, and the amount of fans that have poured in, and the way that it looks at night. You talk about the way that these communities bring together. What is it still about, the spectacle of, you have this baseball game hoping to get done by fireworks, that, brings everybody in, at least, to watch a baseball game in those legendary seats there?
It truly is a spectacle when you say it that way, Isaac. And what we enjoy doing as Wahpeton Baseball Association and the Legion squad there, we enjoy bringing in the younger kids to get them to feel it. And when the 9Us, the 10Us, the 11Us, the 12Us, the Babe Ruths, even the B Legion squad, the Junior Legion squads that we have, they're introduced that night. So it's just one big, almost like a tournament atmosphere with everybody there and all the teams and represented, so that the little folks, the little guys, can feel what it's like. So that's the spectacle to me.
That's incredible. That's incredible. We're joined by Joe Schreiner here, president of the Wahpeton Baseball Association, ahead of a couple big-time community events, or rather two baseball games and one big community event between Breckenridge and Wahpeton here. What should people be aware of here when it comes to this year's iteration of the game? How are things kind of shaping out here in preparation for getting John Randall Field ready here?
Well, as we speak, I think Coach Kappas and some other guys are down there at the field. They're doing some special paint jobs on the turf down there. It is a natural grass surface, but they're doing some painting down there, and I think folks will get a kick out of that. So that'll be something special for the 250th. And then we also, some other things that folks can look forward to in preparation for it here. We're going to have, one of the things that I always like to do is honor the veterans for ceremonial first pitches. And we try to get a veteran from Wahpeton and a veteran from Breckenridge so that both sides are represented. And we do. We've succeeded at that, and we've had great representation there, too, to get that going. Of course, there's popcorn, hot dogs, hamburgers, cheeseburgers, all that stuff, too. But and then some folks, sometimes they maybe bring their own beverages. So we'll just say that.
Well, there you go. Well, is there, considering that this is a very significant 4th of July, it's the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, is there pressure maybe, to put on a really special show, at least from the presentation of this game, games aside?
I've been trying very hard behind the scenes, Isaac, to get a flyover. I have not been able to get that done yet. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2022, we had a flyover by Toby McPherson, but unfortunately, he hasn't been able to return my messages. And I've tried a couple other sources too, and so far right now we're trying to get that handled. But we'll have the color guard there. The Wahpeton Legion color guard will be there and present, and we've got a flag out on the scoreboard that says Happy 250th, to the United States, and we got a special singer. We're going to have Carter Cava from Breckenridge. He graduated this year. He's got Williams syndrome, and he's going to sing our national anthem. And that's going to be pretty special too.
I'm telling you, if you have an opportunity to, be in that area, I know that there are plenty of community celebrations this weekend here. I would strongly consider, at least from looking into this, to come down to that area at John Randall Field in Wahpeton. Looks like an incredible time here. Well, other than that, at least for the play on the field, how have how has Post 20 at least been looking, at least this year, from this perspective of getting this season going leading up to this game?
Well, Wahpeton right now is Post 20 is 11-10 overall record. And like I said, last night we were up in Park River and took on the Class B champs from high school and split with them. Got a 4-1 victory and then lost the second game 4-3 in the final innings. So it was a good game played by both teams up there, and probably some of the best baseball that Wahpeton has played so far yet this year. When you look at the Breckenridge side of the team, Post 53, they've got great kids too. My other duties that I do, I'm with Three Border Sports Network, so I cover Breckenridge as well. And some of those boys, and I know them personally too as well, they're a pretty good squad. Right now, I think they're sitting at 5-3, and they've got one game that's suspended. But I really do expect a good game on the field this year between the two teams. And right now, I think the series stands at a 14-8 in favor of Wahpeton. But you never know year to year. It's you just got to come and watch and enjoy.
Games again are at 3:00 and 8:00 on Saturday. Last thought before I let you go here, just wanted to get your final thoughts on just, if people do decide to come out and, see this opportunity here of, communities, coming together here on the 4th of July, what would you say, if someone's never been, what would be like your sales pitch?
My 30-second elevator speech, huh?
We'll take it.
I would say be prepared to enjoy the evening. You have great vantage points. We've got grandstand seating there. And along first baseline, along the third baseline, you've got some great viewing spots. Just bring a chair if you want. You can sit on a blanket if you want to sit on the grass. Just be prepared to enjoy. And then at the end of the evening, the fireworks, of course, presented by the Wahpeton City. There's plenty of sponsors that do that too as well. But the Wahpeton City does the fireworks, and prepare to be amazed, because for a small town, it's one heck of a show.
A little Americana with a side of America's pastime. Joe Schreiner, president of the Wahpeton Baseball Association, thank you so much for being with us here this Friday. Hope to see a ton of people come out tomorrow night here.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Isaac, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Pleasure to talk with you. Again, Joe Schreiner, president of the Wahpeton Baseball Association. Big games here in Legion Ball in the region this weekend. We'll hit a break here. We'll come back in just a moment. We'll be talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves. I have a few thoughts about the way that things have been going with the free agency and all that going on. We'll talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves next on Hot Mic. July 3rd edition of Hot Mic continues here on this Friday morning. My name's Isaac Dienison. I again appreciate you being with us here today. Filling in for Dom. We've had 4 different hosts this week. Dom did Monday's show. Sam Getzinger did Tuesday. And Riley Swenson, our sports director here, did the last 2 days. And all have let everybody know, at least at some point, that I was to be hosting. This is my first time again in the chair, if you're just joining us here, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be talking sports with you here today. Now, I know I teased something else coming into this segment. I think this is a little, what I teased was a little more pleasing to the eye. I wanted to talk a little bit about a 4th of July tradition. We talked with Cory Provus earlier about the Yankees having traditionally July 4th home games, or at least having a big spectacle on the 4th of July. Also going on in New York, apart from World Cup action over in New Jersey, you got the annual Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, local news classic, filler content for the 4th of July. And that is going to be notable this year in particular because it will be broadcasted for the first time this year on WDAY, on ABC. This is footage from last year's hot dog eating competition. Joey Chestnut made his grand return to the competition after a 1-year layoff. There was a big dispute over his affiliation with brands that did not align with Nathan's values. And Joey Chestnut returned to the competition in a big way. He won pretty easily. His contest record still remains at 76 hot dogs and buns, and there you see that's the method that you pretty much have to utilize to win that competition. He had 70.5 hot dogs and buns last year. Something also notable here about the 4th of July, it's not just the hot dog eating contest. I believe there's several other competitions that you'll see here on your screen here. By the way, Miki Sudo won the women's competition. She's also pretty good at doing this competition. There's also a lemonade chugging contest that I don't think gets nearly enough pub. This is what 2024's competition looked like. You'll be seeing on your screen here in the middle a guy who goes by the name of Badlands in Major League Eating. This is a gallon of lemonade that they're forced to chug here for the competition. Badlands did this, again, a gallon of lemonade in 21 seconds. That broke his record at that time. This is a relatively new competition, but there you see him finish it. This is incredible what the human body is somewhat capable of doing. Of course, you do have to really push yourself to be able to, perform some of these acts. But if that isn't America, I don't know exactly what is. But that's at least going to be, at least the hot dog eating competition I know will be on at 11:30 They'll have coverage on ESPN, I believe, at 11 o'clock Central Time, but that's something that I look forward to every year, not just from the perspective of Major League eating, as I mentioned, that's a thing. They treat competitive eating as a sport in that medium. It really is quite something, even if it is maybe a little grotesque for the average person. But the way that you got to eat those hot dogs and buns, there's a real science to it that if you're at least interested in watching, I really highly recommend researching that. It's very interesting. Transitioning then to something very much different. I know that this program's been making an opportunity to talk about some of the moves that the Minnesota Timberwolves have been making here. In particular, this program talked about when LaMelo Ball was traded from the Charlotte Hornets to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and also Julius Randle getting dealt in that 3-team deal to the Brooklyn Nets. Seeing this team now come together is the way that it has, it's tough to really put into words here, especially because of, who you're losing. Again, I think Julius Randle, by the end of his tenure in Minnesota, these highlights that we're playing here for our TV audience won't show, but at least at that, you could tell at least Julius Randle was more of a negative than a positive for Minnesota. He had been acquired for Karl Anthony Towns that now fans have really been criticizing lately. But now you also have, in acquiring LaMelo Ball, you give up Naz Reid, who had become a very much fan favorite. I'll say this, when they had a limited time drop of the first Naz Reid towel, I got on NBA Store and bought that quick. And it, has become a bit of a status symbol of Wolves fandom. And now just the future of the team, it's looking kind of interesting. You have, just kind of looking at the website Spot Track that tracks cap space here right now for the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's kind of absurd, honestly. They have negative $92 million in cap space. Some of those are holdover contracts that are still affecting how much cap space they have. But they're able to bring in LaMelo Ball now, who is going to be the second highest paid player on the team at $40.7 million of a cap hit next year. I'm interested to see now still what will be done otherwise with however much they can do. There's not really much that they can do. They were able to bring back Bones Highland recently for guard depth in the backcourt for them. I believe they also have Jalen Clark picking up his team option for next year. But you still look at that roster, as other hosts have on this program here. You wonder what's next for the power forward position. How are you going to make this roster shake here without at least a Rudy Gobert trade? I don't know if that's even a possibility right now. I know that when Jaylen Brown was getting floated out there for a potential Wolves trade option, Rudy Gobert probably would have been part of that, especially after the Wolves dealing Naz Reid for essentially LaMelo Ball. And now, I don't know, I wouldn't say this is necessarily a farewell to some of the teams that have been part of the franchise here for their ascent. It's been fun seeing, this team ascend from hopeful playoff team with, some young guys, and then they trade for Rudy Gobert. They really assert themselves. I know that some people were really hard on the Rudy Gobert trade. It has aged like fine wine, in my opinion, over time. But now you have some of these corresponding moves that still kind of leave more questions than answers. So I am hopeful that LaMelo Ball can be a good distributor, getting Anthony Edwards more opportunities to relieve some stress when both of them are on the floor. But it now just kind of comes down to how much actual length do you have as the league is somewhat getting taller. You have, of course, the Timberwolves lost to the San Antonio Spurs, and they have the tallest person on the planet, pretty much, that can play basketball, at least, or one of the tallest people that can play basketball as part of their team. And you also have Oklahoma City, who has doubled down on Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, at least for now. I'm kind of doubtful that Chet Holmgren will be on the Oklahoma City Thunder in a couple years, but that's at least for them to determine at a later date. But you still have the top of the Western Conference as it sits right now getting taller. The Wolves are kind of getting a little smaller here, at least if you're going to really put out Jaden McDaniels, who is, of course, 6'10", but he's a light, lanky 6'10". If you're going to put him at the power forward position, it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. Again, free agency is ongoing. If they can find somebody that is willing to play for the minimum, or if they can maybe still move some assets, I don't know even how much they can do that, but this is going to be something to really look out for. And also for at least the future, there will be NBA expansion. I don't think this has been talked about a whole lot around the Timberwolves. NBA expansion is coming. Seattle and Las Vegas are getting franchises. That possibly means that the Timberwolves could be moving to the Eastern Conference, which changes their outlook. It's not official on who would be moving from the West to the East. People have thought Memphis. People have thought New Orleans. Minnesota kind of makes sense geographically, in my opinion. But we will, again, kind of let things play out here as we go along here as the Minnesota Timberwolves try to figure out the rest of their roster. Eric, you got something here.
Yeah, you were talking about expansion for the NBA and stuff. It's not confirmed that Vegas and Seattle are getting a team, but I was talking about it upstairs, and it was if to make the most sense, like geographically, to kind of keep the teams around, New Orleans makes sense to stay in the West because they have all the Texas and OKC schools, right? Or right. OKC team, like all the Texas teams at OKC right there. Then it just comes down to Memphis and Minnesota because Memphis is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But it makes more sense with the Timberwolves because you have the Bulls, the Bucks, the Cavs, and the Pistons all within like a 2-hour flight, I want to say, out of Minneapolis. So I think if the team's going to move, it's going to be the Wolves, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and at least I should say, right, at least from the perspective of expansion, it's at least been rumored. It's nothing official yet, but it really does feel like Seattle and Vegas would be the most plausible opportunities for expansion here if the NBA were to expand. But that, either way, will still impact the Timberwolves' future here. When we come back, we'll be talking a little more baseball here. Chris Coste, manager of the FM RedHawks, will be talking about his recent induction in the American Association of Professional Baseball Hall of Fame, and also looking to talk about his team as we head toward the 4th of July weekend. Hot Mic continues with Chris Coste next.
This is Hot Mic with Dom Izzo, presented by Northwestern Mutual.
Isaac Dienison in for Dom Izzo here on this July 3rd. Appreciate you being with us here today. We've been talking pretty extensively about baseball here, whether it be Twins baseball with Cory Provus in our first hour, and then at the top of the second hour we were visiting with Joe Schreiner with the Wahpeton Baseball Association. It was pretty clear that wanted to make sure that our America's Pastime was covered pretty extensively here on this show, especially with the pretty significant anniversary here for the United States, with so much of America's history being played through baseball. With that, we are joined here this morning by Fargo-Moorhead RedHawks manager Chris Coste this morning as they get set to have a weekend series at home, but there's also a lot going on in his career. Chris Coste joins us. How you doing this morning?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. It's going to be a beautiful day for some baseball, and Kansas City Monarchs in town. It's going to be a sellout crowd with, I believe, some fireworks. So we're always excited to get to the ballpark, but I think today's one of those days where hopefully the weather holds and everything's good for today.
You talk about just, the excitement surrounding, Newman Outdoor Field, coming off, the Banana Ball series over the weekend, last weekend. We'll get to some of the opportunity in a moment, but I wanted to open our conversation by congratulating you to the being inducted into the American Association Hall of Fame here. What's it like to, have that honor at least brought up to you here?
I thought this was a possibility at some point, maybe 10 years down the road or something like that. It wasn't something I thought about anytime soon. It's, I've been to the last, I think, 4 banquets for the inductees, been to the All-Star games for these things, got to see Doug Simonic, former Red Hawk best manager in the history of independent baseball, partner league baseball, go in. That was pretty cool. So when they told me about a month ago, I was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "I mean, are you sure about this? Is this, So I didn't know if they were joking or, it's obviously a pretty cool honor. If you go back, boy, to 1995 when the RedHawks were announced for the first time, first season 96, but late in 1995 when they announced there was going to be a team, and then they named it the RedHawks, and Dan Gladden comes out in a RedHawks uniform, and I wasn't even a blip on the radar at the time, and I remember being at the old Playmakers Pavilion when they had that, and it was just people everywhere, 1,000 people in this little room, and the excitement around the team. And now fast forward to 2026, and I'm going into the Hall of Fame for, between the Northern League and the American Association. I still wake up many days, wondering if this happened, winning a World Series in 2008, making the major leagues, all those things. I wake up frequently, and then the fact that I now get to manage the RedHawks and be in this league still and do what I do, it's I tell you what, life's worked out just fine. I'll say that.
I know our group, our sports staff at the forum did an article with you not long ago, kind of talking about exactly that sentiment. Just considering this, honor here in particular. How much because as you said, you've been with this organization or had some ties to this organization since the beginning. What's it been like representing Fargo-Moorhead in general as your career has gone in the directions that it has here?
Well, it's been a pretty good part of the story, and my goal was always to be a major leaguer. My goal was to be a successful major leaguer. You can say your goal is to win a World Series, but really you got to be in the right position. Individually, you can get to the major leagues. You got to be good, and you got to succeed, and you got to prove yourself. But to win a World Series, you do have to be lucky to be on the right team. And so, all these years, I realized that it's a good story coming from, being born and raised in Fargo and being an original Red Hawk that wasn't even supposed to make the team. And then, being one of the guys who made it, it's pretty cool. But I remind our guys, our current players constantly, yes, I made it, but so did Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas was, got his start not with our team, but with another team in our league, and then eventually made the major leagues. This year we've had Julian Garcia from the Kansas City Monarchs made it. Brian Torres from the Milwaukee Milkmen make it. It seems like every year there's at least one guy, maybe two in case like this year, who have used leagues like ours, and not just our league, but and that's why I do what I do. And so to be able to, represent the RedHawks and our league and the players, it's, again, and I say this constantly, it is why I do what I do. For people like me, there's opportunities to go into organizations, maybe get to the major leagues as a coach manager. And, those days have probably passed me up. But, when I drive to the ballpark and, I see the crowd, and of course it's a different group of fans for the most part than say 30 years ago, but it's still an amazing group of fans. But the players, man, it's at our level, it's about the fans and it's about the players. And again, to be able to have this logo still on my shirt as we are now talking, it's pretty surreal. And, for me, and my blood is both Philly and Red Hawk red. It's pretty cool.
I know that I was lucky enough to actually, when I was getting my minor at MSUM, by the way, John Wepking called you up and went into a class that I was in. I want to say this is circa 2019 or something. You came in and talked to our class, and you also passed around your World Series ring. from 2008. I still have a picture of that on my phone, and I thought that was just, one, so cool, one, to hold that, piece of jewelry, but it also, I'm sure, represents so many, sacrifices that you've made, in your life to get to that point. When you talk about just like the legacy that you have, said, probably on several occasions now at this point, but like, what is it like, to be able to say that, yes, I'm from Fargo and I'm a World Series champion, and there's also some other things to it too, but like, just being able to have that opportunity to share your story on this stage. What's it like, again, even after all this time?
Yeah, and again, to make the major leagues, it's a very individual thing. It's like you have to be good enough. You have to be resilient. There's all these different things that go into it. But again, to win a World Series, you got to be in the right place at the right time. And for me, it's that World Series ring. It's probably the single biggest reason why I still wake up on occasion wondering if that happened. I'll get it out. And if you remember how heavy that thing is too, it's pretty amazing, how cool that is. But, it's also interesting. If you look at the percentage of North Dakota major leaguers, a very high percentage of us have won World Series. Darren Erstad, Rick Helling, and obviously Roger Maris. I mean, the list goes on, and there's others I can't even off the top of my head now that we're talking about it. But there hasn't been a lot of North Dakotans, obviously, but the amount of high level or those of us who reach the highest level. I mean, even in basketball with Phil Jackson, you could go into hockey. It's amazing the percentage of us that have made it to the highest level that have also achieved, whether it's Stanley Cup, NFL and MLB. It's there's something about that North Dakota blood, that North Dakota water.
Chris Coste joining us here this morning on Hot Mic. The banquet for the Hall of Fame will be on July 14th down in Nebraska. The All-Star festivities, by the way, this year, the game itself will be broadcasted on MLB Network, and 4 RedHawks will be represented. What's it like for you as manager? I know that last year Fargo held the All-Star game at Newman Outdoor Field. In your time here as manager of the RedHawks, what's it like to, see these players get rewarded, even if it is, an opportunity to just play maybe an inning or so in a game like that?
I think excuse me, in any sport at any level, being named an all-star is an honor. It's an achievement. And I would say at our level, in our league, it is incredibly important because our players are trying to move on to some other level, whether it be get signed by an MLB organization and make their way to the major leagues, or get to Mexico and if they're a little bit older and make money, or Japan, or various places in Asia, which a lot of our players have done the last 3 or 4 years. So to be on display and to be on the MLB Network or MLB TV and all those things, our league is about exposure for our players. We play to win, and we want fans and fireworks Fridays and seeing Superfan run around and all the promotions. We all love that stuff, but at the same time, this is about our players and their opportunities, the same way it was for me from 96 to 1999, which helped me get to where I got. So when you see our guys make it, you're proud of them and you're excited for them and their careers. Because again, nobody's making much money at our level. I think the highest paid player in our league is around $4,000 a month, and that's rare. That's not common. I would say the average salary is maybe $1,750. Some guys make $2,000. The rookie minimum's $1,400. So obviously these guys are not making a lot of money. So to make an all-star team, and hopefully people are watching and they can improve their careers, because that is what our league is all about. And our league continues, the talent level continues to increase. And there's reasons for that. Number one, the athletes just get bigger, faster, stronger in time. But also there's less of a draft. There's fewer minor league teams. So those players have to go somewhere. Some of them go to Mexico, some of them go to Asia, but there's just not enough teams for all them. So back in 2022-23, our league every year, the pitching gets just a little bit better every year. The hitters get a little bit better every year. The guys who steal bases get just a little faster every year. So it's to be on display at the All-Star game. It's certainly an honor, but also for their careers.
Again, 4 players from the RedHawks get to make it. The game will be July 15th. Before we get to that point, though, got some games coming up this weekend here at Newman Outdoor Field, as you alluded to. We got a 3-game series with Kansas City starting tonight, fireworks, and then a 2:50 special 2:50 start time on Saturday. If fans are going to make it out to Newman Outdoor Field this weekend, what would you say that they should be looking out for here?
Well, every team in our league is really good. Whether it's the last place team, which we just played in Lincoln, man, they play us like it's the World Series every game. But Kansas City, they're kind of them and us have been in the finals quite a bit, winning championships. It's an amazing rivalry. So they're in first place, and everyone's gunning for them. And they have a roster full of ex-major leaguers. They just signed another one a couple days ago, and J.D. Davis. So they're a fun team to watch, and their manager and I, we probably get along as well or better than most other managers. He grew up in Philadelphia. He's a proud Italian. He's a huge Phillies fan. So, we have a lot to talk about, and most of the managers we get along, not all of us, but we get along. But him and I, Joe Califapietra, we get along amazingly well. But there's this Fargo-Kansas City rivalry is starting to turn into what the Fargo-Winnipeg rivalry has been since 1996. So the Fargo-Winnipeg rivalry, it's changed a little bit, but it's still there. But the Fargo-Kansas City rivalry is fun. And so the brand of baseball, the excitement, the intensity, the battle for first place, all these things coming in. So again, that's why, the weather holds. I give out a lot of tickets, and the lady who does the tickets messaged and said, "Hey, we don't have a lot of space, so give me your tickets now so I can fit them in," which is a great sign, which means that tonight's probably sold out, tomorrow's probably sold out. So it's going to be a great environment.
I really hope that they're, at least the team's sake, that there's a little bit of, holdover from Banana Ball fever. That last weekend was tremendous for attendance here. So I'm at least for your guys' sake, hoping that you guys get a little attendance spike here down the stretch of the second half of the season as you guys continue to compete for a playoff spot. Chris Coste joining us this morning. Really appreciate getting to talk to you here. And again, congratulations on the honor here for being named to the American Association Hall of Fame.
Yep, thank you. And thanks for having me, and giddy up, go Hawks.
Absolutely. Appreciate you again. Chris Coste, fantastic opportunity here to round out our guest lineup. We'll break one more time here on this Friday edition of Hot Mic with Dom Izzo. We'll wrap up the show with what to watch coming up. The bow on hour 2 here of Hot Mic on this July 3rd edition of Hot Mic with Dom Izzo. We really appreciate our guest lineup here today. Cory Provus, Joe Schreiner, Chris Coste. Fantastic baseball conversation throughout here today. And one last time, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know it's been teased all week that myself in particular, gets to sit in this chair. And I'll tell you what, it's, again, another full circle type moment. It's incredible to go from 5 years ago being part of the, directing team to being able to have the opportunity to sit in this chair and actually talk about sports. A tremendous opportunity that I know I will not take for granted. Not sure if this will ever come up again, but I know that I had some fun today. Before we go, of course, it is 10:55 on a Friday. You know what that means. It's time for What to Watch. Tonight, we have the Minnesota Twins opening up a 3-game series with the New York Yankees. You can see that at 6:05 on Twins TV. At 5 o'clock, World Cup action. Lionel Messi in Argentina will take on Cape Verde. Again, that starts at 5 o'clock, one of the many knockout games today. And then the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty have formed a bit of a rivalry in the WNBA. The Minnesota Lynx are the best team in the W this year. You can see that tonight at 6:30 on ION Television. This weekend, as we told you earlier, the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest for the first time. You can catch that on WDAY. It starts at 11:30 on Saturday. And if you're looking for baseball action that's not the Minnesota Twins, Cubs and Cardinals at Wrigley Field. Dom Izzo is in the Chicagoland area. Not sure if he'll be there for that game, but if you're looking for a great baseball environment, that's the one, 7 o'clock on Fox. And then Brazil and Norway, Sunday at 3 o'clock in the World Cup. The Norwegians have been an electric fan base out there. Again, it's an awesome opportunity to be with you here today on this show. Cory Provus, Joe Schreiner, and Chris Coste all talking baseball today. If you missed any of this show, you can podcast it on Inforum.com and on YouTube. Well, you can also watch a replay of this show later today on WDAY+. Again, it's been a thrill to be able to sit in this chair and be with you here today. If you're looking for more of me, you'll be able to catch me on our Forum News Network broadcast tonight, also on WDAY Extra, and also be anchoring the news on WDAY tomorrow at 6 and 10. Again, appreciate you being with us here on this Friday. Be safe this 4th of July weekend. We really appreciate you joining us here today. Have a fantastic weekend. Dom will be back on Monday. Thanks for being with us here on Hot Mic.